Well, guys, it had to happen. So this video is to say goodbye to the ID.4. Now, we love the ID.4, and I'm not going to go in depth into all the things that we like about the ID.4 because I just did a 30,000 mile update video. If you haven't seen that, it's linked down below. You might want to go check that out. But what we're going to talk about is why we got rid of the ID.4. What was our ultimate decision? What caused us to, just kind of give up on the ID.4? So we are going to cover a few things of what we loved about the ID.4, the trust we had in Volkswagen, the lies that Volkswagen told us, and the disappointment we had in Volkswagen and kind of the ID.4. But we'll get into that right now. So let's talk about the great things about the ID.4. Just real quick, give a quick rundown of what we liked about the ID.4 and why it is a good vehicle. It's one of the most comfortable vehicles that you can take a road trip in. The seats are amazing. They have massaging seats. They're very comfortable. They hold you in the seat well. They're just great. It's extremely reliable. It always worked. We never had to repair or replace any parts on it. It's a very solid build. Even after 30,000 miles, there were no extra noises, creaks, or rattles. The other thing is it's an excellent car to look at. It was a small step into the future, but most people didn't even realize it was an EV. So it was like something that was a little bit different, but enough of a normal looking car that people really weren't sure what it was. And that's something that we really liked. It was super fun to drive. Even though it only had 201 horsepower, the low center of gravity made this car handle like a sports car, or even like driving a go-kart. It was just a lot of fun. And it had free charging at Electrify America. That was one of the main reasons that we bought this car as our first electric car. We didn't have to pay for any charging. So that was another great thing. And I feel that it is the best first EV for anyone looking to transition from a gas to an electric car. It had a lot of regular vehicle mannerisms, and you could adjust how you were driving and how much regen you had, or if you had any regen at all, by using different modes. So it was very compatible to people that are in that transition period. So the other reason we bought this is because it's built by Volkswagen. And Volkswagen has a long history of manufacturing going back to 1945 with the iconic Beetle. Now, they are also known for solid cars and excellent dependability. So after all of that, what would make us decide to move on from the ID.4? Lies and disappointment. That is the main reason for someone to leave a brand, a car, even your job. Lies and disappointment. So let's talk about the lies Volkswagen told. So Volkswagen promoted over-the-air updates every 12 weeks from the time that the ID.4 was to be produced. We bought our ID.4 in December of 2021. So these cars have already been out for almost a year at that point. And the first update that was announced was spring of 2022. So it's over a year since they had promised these over-the-air updates every 12 weeks. Now, this software was supposed to be 3.0. About a month later, we received notification that in order to get over-the-air software 3.0, you had to get software 2.4 installed at the dealership with a new 12-volt battery. Okay, fine. That's fine. We were fine with that. We'll do that process, and then we'll get our over-the-air updates, and everything will be awesome. Well, they tried the update in Europe. They had a lot of issues before they finally kind of ironed out some of the problems, but we never got anything in the US all the way through the summer of 2022. After many complaints and a video by E for Electric, We then received an email that updates were going to be starting before the end of the year, and they would start a rollout by VIN numbers. So we're thinking ours was probably about 6 months old when we bought ours, so it wasn't a first edition, so we're figuring the first editions are probably going to get those first, and we'll get ours a little bit later, so we figured probably somewhere between February to March, they should be contacting us to get ours updated. Well, February 2023 came around and still no update. We then received an email that they were stopping the updates because it was causing issues and problems with the ID.4. I believe it had bricked a few of them, and they had to redo software, and they were having a lot of problems with compatibility with the cars. So they stopped the update. Okay, so now we know that we're going to probably be a few months out before they get that lined out, and then maybe we can get our update. Well, about a week after that, we received another email that, guess what? Another battery recall, because they already had a battery recall early in 2022, and now another battery recall. And this apparently is going to affect almost all ID.4s. I don't know if it's just isolated to 2021s or if it's years after that, or if it even involves any of the Chattanooga ID.4s. Let me know down in the comments if you received one of those emails and you have a 22, 23, or a US built one. I'd like to know that information. Now having that battery recall, the funny thing about that battery recall is that they said battery could reset itself, causing loss of power and control of the vehicle, which could cause an accident. But that they had no fix for it right now, that they are working on it, and as soon as they get one, they'll get it out to the dealerships as fast as they possibly can, but we should know something by March 31st. So that's almost 2 months later, we'll know something by then. So now they're basically saying, you could lose power, you could cause an accident, but go ahead and drive your car for the next 2 months or until we figure out how we're going to fix it. So what we are disappointed in is the ID.4 has an EPA range of 250 miles. During the summer, on 100% charge, we would easily get 240 to 260 miles, maybe even just a little bit better than that, above 60 degrees. And when we would travel to Chicago, it's about 190 miles, and we would have somewhere around 15 to 20% of our charge left when we got there. And if we went to St. Louis, we would end up having around 20 to 25% left on our battery. So it was an easy, quick charge, and we could head back home. During the winter, our range at 100% went down to 180 to 200 miles, depending on the temperature and the weather. Now, traveling to Chicago, we would have to stop and charge, or we would not make it. And it was even worse if the wind was blowing against us. If we had a tailwind, it's possible that we would squeeze in there at the house at maybe around 5% battery left, but we're not going to risk that. And if we had a headwind, there was no way we were ever going to make it there. And going to St. Louis, we would make it there, and then depending on the weather there, even sometimes we wouldn't show up at our destination with any more than around 10 to 15%. If we were driving against the wind, sometimes it would even be lower than that. And that's only about a 160-mile drive. And the main reason for all of this is because there's no heat pump on these cars. So it uses resistive heating, which means it has to use power from the battery to heat up the cabin in the car. Now, doing that, it's also using power while you're driving. It's trying to send power to drive the vehicle. It's trying to send more power to heat up the car because it's cold outside, and it just really drains the range very, very quickly. Because there's no heat pump or any battery preconditioning, we also have an issue with charging. So Charging during the summer, if it was 70 degrees or above, we could easily get the 125 kilowatts that they told us we were going to get and be able to charge from 10 to 80% in about 40 minutes. But when it was under 50 degrees, we really didn't see much more than about 96 kilowatts. And most of the time it was even under that. And so that stretched your 10% to 80% out to 50 minutes or more. And then if it was even colder than that, if it was under 35 degrees, then we saw about a high of maybe 58 kilowatts. And trust me, if it was even colder than that outside, it was even slower than that. But that easily pushed our 10% to 80% up to an hour or more. And most of the time, it was the or more. We love the build, the drive, the comfort, the look, the build quality, and the dependability of the ID.4. I love it. I don't regret buying it. I don't regret the purchase. I don't regret that. But after a year of driving this, and those issues that I just talked about, and the lies from Volkswagen, this is why we chose to walk away from the ID.4. There's no heat pump or battery preconditioning, which causes poor winter range and charging speeds. Plus, no updates, and now a battery recall. So what did we replace it with? Well, we went back and forth on a few things. So what we ended up getting, make sure you stay tuned and subscribe so you can see what the new OSR Garage vehicle is going to be. I will see you later.